Hello and welcome to another video. You know, I think here at Marble Gallery, it's probably no surprise to you that I'm a big Xbox fan. I've been an Xbox gamer since the 360 launched in 2005, and well, I didn't own an original Xbox until very towards the end of that generation. I bought one when Fable came out, the original Fable. So I only had that system for about a year before the 360 came out. I have since in recent years gone back and actually built quite an extensive collection for the original Xbox. It's a phenomenal machine that I really wish I would have owned earlier in that generation. But today I want to talk about something that's been weighing heavily on me in terms of Xbox, and it's kind of has to do with their acquisitions, but more or less it's, you know, we now on the Microsoft side of things have all these studios, and what does Microsoft have to show for it? And that's kind of the gist of this video today. The thing that sparked it, obviously, is the Perfect Dark news. Perfect Dark news is pretty simple. They lost their creative director and about 34 different senior level employees. So like half of the staff of this game left mid-development, and that's resulted in them kind of doing a soft reboot of that game. So, you know, when I said a while ago that game is going to be 2025, it's looking like it really is going to be 2025 before you see Perfect Dark. And it just brought to my mind, I started going down the list of games that have been announced here, and I started thinking about, okay, we're in almost April of 2022. What's Microsoft got in 2022 besides Starfield? Is the only thing that we know about, which, you know, is only an exclusive by proxy. Like, they purchased Bethesda and made the game exclusive to their platform. So what do they have? What's announced? What is coming out this year? I thought we would go down the list and kind of talk about the concerns I have for Microsoft right now. Let's talk about some of the games that have been announced, but we haven't seen anything for in a while. First one that comes to my mind is Avowed. This is a game that's being made by Obsidian Entertainment. It seems like it's going to be kind of an Elder Scrolls-like game. This was announced about a year and a half ago with a very quick CG trailer. I'd say it's like under a minute long, and that's it. We haven't seen anything about this game since. And that's kind of where you're going to see a repeating pattern here. How about Fable? They're going to reboot Fable with Playground Games, the people that make the Forza Horizon franchise. And this was announced back in 2019, and nothing has been shown. We're 3 years later, literally nothing has been shown about this Fable reboot. That's extremely questionable. Like, what's going on with the Fable reboot? Where is that game? So there's a lot of questionable things here. Like, where are these games? When are they coming? What's going on with them? You have something like Redfall, which was recently announced. It's a little more recent of a game, but they did state this was a summer 2022 game. Well, again, it's April, so you think you'd start talking about that game, but we've heard nothing. It's just, there's a lot of that. There's a lot of questionable things. Now, when you look down the list, there are some games that we do know are coming this year. There's Scorn, which is in October. Kind of looks like a pretty cool, like, H.R. Geiger, like, this creature design game. It's a very horror-looking game. Not a lot has been shown on it, but I'm still interested in that game. That at least has a date of, like, October 14th or something like that, and that's a Game Pass game. But what's Microsoft doing? You know, we're almost at the time where you'd be announcing the next Gears of War as well, and that's been all dead on that front. And I don't know if it's, you know, Halo's diminishing returns. I don't know what Microsoft's doing when it comes to games, because now they own Activision Blizzard, or they will very shortly here. They're going to be adding like many more studios to this, and it's time to start showing some games, start cranking some things out. And this got me to thinking about Microsoft having a first-party problem for the last decade. You look at when the Xbox One generation started, the launch of that system was Dead Rising 3, which was probably the best title of the launch games, Rise, Son of Rome, and Forza Motorsport 5. Those were your launch titles. And nothing really came, like, Dead Rising 3 was fine, I enjoyed it. It's probably my least favorite Dead Rising, but it still was an enjoyable launch title. Rise, Son of Rome didn't set the world on fire. It's basically a dead franchise now, and I mean, Forza Motorsport, it did fine. Then you go back, you have Sunset Overdrive. Now, in this era of games, Sunset Overdrive would be my pick as the best one. Did it do well? It did okay. You're probably never going to see a sequel to it. Obviously, Insomniac Games is now owned by Sony. They're the Spider-Man studio, so they're going to make a Sunset Overdrive 2. That would be crazy. But I digress. That's probably the best of these games. Then you start digging a little deeper. Remember Recore? Recore was a game that was made by the Metroid Prime developers, and it failed. Like, people just didn't like the game. It didn't do very well. It had a lot of frame rate issues when it came out that have since been fixed with a 1X update and some PC patches. But again, that game didn't set the world on fire. You're never going to see a Recore 2. Super Lucky's Tale. This was an interesting one because they kind of took a previously VR game and made a platformer because they wanted to have a platformer for kids for their platform. And it did okay, but again, what are people talking about Super Lucky's Tale? No. And finally, the bigger one I want to talk about is Crackdown 3. So I will sit here, you've seen on my channel, I defended Crackdown 3 when it came out. I think it's fine if you're a Crackdown fan. It's more Crackdown 1, and that part of it is fine. I still think to this day I enjoyed that aspect of Crackdown 3, but everything that they promised with all the cloud computing destruction, that all was a mess and it didn't work when it came to the separate multiplayer mode for the game. So, but again, Crackdown 3, did that bring people in? Did people give a shit about Crackdown 3? No, I don't think that franchise will return now. And that's it. You look at these games, last generation leading up to this generation, and Microsoft didn't really have a big amount of bangers, so to speak, for their first party. Yeah, you still have mainstay franchises like Halo and Gears. You know, Halo 5, very famously on this channel, I've told you I hate that single player campaign. Multiplayer of it was okay. I'd argue the multiplayer of that game is better than Halo Infinite's multiplayer at this point. Then you have Gears 4 and Gears 5. Gears 4 I thought was an excellent return to form for the franchise. Gears 5 had a lot of issues, and that's where you saw Microsoft kind of digging into the microtransaction world, where they really took a lot of notes and then implemented those poor microtransaction decisions into Halo Infinite. And also, Gears 5 has a pretty questionable decision you make towards the end of the game. I'm not going to spoil it here, but it's stupid to put that kind of decision in a game that they're going to have to pick one of these options as canon for the next game. There's no way they're going to develop Gears 6 with two branching, paths dependent upon which decision you made. That would just be ludicrous. It's not Mass Effect. I mean, you look at it and you ask yourself this: does Microsoft have a first-party problem? Are they too lenient? Is Phil Spencer too lenient on these studios? Talk about some other studios like Rare. So Rare put out Sea of Thieves, which, while I'm not a huge fan of Sea of Thieves, I understand that it's extremely popular now and it's done very well for itself, but then you look at what they're currently working on, Everwild, a game that is basically a disaster from everything that I've heard, from everything I've seen leak out about it. It's been rebooted several times to the point where there have literally been people that work at that studio that have come out publicly and said, I don't know what the game is that we're making. So that game's in kind of development hell. And then, of course, the big one, obviously, is Perfect Dark. Perfect Dark, as I talked about at the top of this video, with that many people leaving that studio in such a short amount of time, it poses two problems. One, it proves that Microsoft's gamble on the Initiative, which is some sort of think tank that thinks of ideas for video games and then goes and gets developers to make them, is a process that is not working. And two, it shows me that they're playing it too loose with these studios. On the flip side, look at your competition. Look at Sony. Look at the excellent PS4 generation leading into this generation that they've had with first-party titles. Now, I'm not going to sit here and say that every first-party title landed with me, but look at things like Bloodborne, look at Last of Us, look at Horizon Zero Dawn, and recently released Horizon Forbidden West. Look at God of War. These are all games that really hit their mark and now have highly anticipated sequels. Horizon Forbidden West just came out, but we're getting God of War later this year. You look at this and you look at the competition and go, wow, they're really killing it with first-party games. Reasons for someone to go out and buy the system. And right now, the only reason somebody should go and buy a Microsoft system is for Game Pass, which, I've said many times on the channel, Game Pass is a great service and it's an incredible value for the consumer. Like, I couldn't imagine owning a Microsoft system and not having Game Pass. Like, it just doesn't make sense today. With that being said, Does Microsoft have a first-party problem right now? I absolutely think that they do. And I think that somebody needs to step in and go to these studios and really start ramping it up. Start ramping production up for these games. Start showing your fan base, start showing consumers that, hey, we have big titles that are coming, instead of just radio silence. So, which seems like they're just learning everything from 343 Studios and their radio silence on Halo Infinite updates. So, but that's a topic for a different video, and I've already talked about Halo Infinite more than I think I ever care to talk about again. So, I'm curious to know in the comments below, do you think Microsoft has a first-party studio problem right now? Or do you think that everything's okay? Remember to like, share, and subscribe to the channel, and as always, until next time.